But we anticipate it will be one of the fastest growing online commerce channels outside of the traditional e-commerce website this holiday season. In fact, that's one of our holiday predictions, that social commerce will grow 9 times faster than traditional e-commerce.
Welcome to the table, steam on the glass. Market moves fast, but we talk it out. From carts to clicks, from mass to scale, every trend that breaks, we pull it apart. Morning in the feed, ideas in the cup. Old rules shaking, new ways showing up. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Kayla, keep it moving. Coffee and commerce, from first sip to future, we're brewing.
Well, welcome back to Coffee and Commerce. We have Caleb and Kayla. We got the quadruple C thread here on Coffee and Commerce. Kayla, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I have some new coffee with me today. Of course, I'm back on my old grind, pun intended, of course. That is heirloom coffee. It is no mold toxins, no pesticides, no glyphosate. It's all regenerative. And this is the goldenrod blend, but it is regenerative organic certified. So put that in your cup and drink it, which I did. It's right here.
Good? Is it tasty?
It tastes regenerated. It tastes organic. I don't taste any mold or toxins, no glyphosate.
I'm not as fancy as you. I went back to my roots and got a Dunkin' Donuts coffee this morning.
But yeah,
I'm
you know
originally
what?
from Boston.
It's tough to beat a Dunkin' Donuts cold brew, I will say.
They're really good. Yeah, so dropped the kids off at camp and picked up a Dunkin' cold brew on my way home, and I already finished it.
I mean, cold brews on a hot summer morning. I mean, who doesn't love that, especially when it's from Dunkin' Donuts?
Exactly. It was already 90 degrees this morning when we dropped the kids off, so
yeah, that's
it's
wild.
a hot one.
It's been hot all over the place. Is it warming? Is it cooling? We're not too sure. But the good news is that AI will probably tell us.
Exactly. We don't have to answer those questions.
Amazing. Well, for this week's episode, we're actually going to go through a lot of data, aren't we?
Yes.
You actually released the latest shopping index for retail, and there's a ton of great insights on the latest shopping index. So I want to make sure that we hit on that. And then I know that you also have some predictions for holiday. So I'm excited to hear about the holiday predictions too. But before we put on our Santa hat, I know that a ton of work has gone into the shopping index for retail. So maybe just like broad brushstrokes, walk us through the global online performance for Q2, and we'll sort of double click from there.
Yeah. Well, things are getting better and better every quarter in terms of performance, at least on spend. So we saw spend increase 6% year over year in Q2, and this is adjusted based on a constant currency calculation that we have. So it's controlled for inflation and currency fluctuations. And so we're seeing, between Q2 of last year and steadily every single quarter between then and now, sales have trended upwards, which is great. We've also seen that not only are people spending more, but we've started to see a turn in order volumes become positive. So sales were up 2%, order volumes were up 3%. Sorry, spend was up 6%, order volumes were up 3%, which is the highest we've seen over the last 9 quarters. So consumers are spending more. Yeah, which is very interesting, right? It's the headlines wouldn't necessarily indicate that. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand overall in the market. And we had the June Prime event, and not only just Amazon, but we saw a ton of retailers come to the market with their own events, shopping events. I think shoppers, are looking to spend. And so that's really exciting. But there's 2 things from Q2 that are really interesting to me beyond spend. The first is traffic. So traffic volumes were up 18%. And this is the highest we've seen over the last 9 quarters. I mean, just incredible growth in traffic volume.
That is incredible.
Right. And so, there's 2 sort of theses we have here on why this is happening. The first is
please say more.
Longer consideration stages. So shoppers are spending more time researching and deciding more visits to make a single purchase. And the other thesis we have is that the impact of AI, so these agentic search tools, which we've talked a lot about over the last couple of episodes, but essentially there's traffic that we can't really account for where it's coming from. Sometimes, wherever traffic originates from, sometimes that origination can be masked. We can't identify it. So it comes through. And so just incredible traffic volume growth. And then the second thing that is interesting to me is the rate of social traffic. So social traffic is just on an incredible upward trajectory. Yeah, Caleb, I have to ask you, have you ever purchased anything on TikTok Shop? Have you used social
I have
at all?
not downloaded TikTok and I refuse. And I know that I shouldn't, just being in the industry, but I refuse. So I have purchased from other social channels, but not TikTok Shop.
Not TikTok. I get it. It's very once you get on, you can waste a lot of time on TikTok. But social traffic is up to 18%. So 18% of all e-commerce traffic is coming from a social referral. That's overall. If we were just to isolate the mobile traffic, 23% of that is coming from social. That's up massively from last Q2. So just really
What was
strong.
it last quarter? Or what was it last year, Q2?
Last Q2, it was 14% overall and then 17% for mobile. Last quarter, it was 15% overall and 18% for mobile. So we're seeing strong, it's on an upward trend year over year, but even just consistently up every single quarter, which
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, we've been tracking social for so long and it's held at about 9 to 12% of overall traffic share for years. I mean, it really hasn't budged. And I think now with social commerce becoming a lot more ubiquitous, Gen Z having a lot more market share, it's exploding. And so it really, really just really strong growth.
I don't disagree. And without necessarily knowing the details of the numbers like you do, what I do know is that many of our customers, so at least voice of the customer feedback has been that they have invested more heavily in their social channels and actually, quite frankly, started TikTok Shop channels in order to capture some of that growth. And some of them thought, hey, we'll do this and maybe we'll make, $500K, $1 million, whatever. Turns out, they're making 10 to 20x that. Whatever their expectations were, they're making 10 to 20x that, which is wild.
It is
so
wild.
To think that you have a certain level of forecast and to blow that forecast out of the water by 10 to 20x is insane. And it sounds like that it certainly is contributive to the numbers that you're seeing in Q2.
Yeah, absolutely. And you would think too, social might just be for those small purchase type items, but we're seeing it across the entire gamut from low cost beauty items to expensive gadgets. And we'll get to this when we talk about holiday. But what was really interesting in our data is it's not just Gen Z purchasing on social, but we also see the higher end of the income bracket purchasing on social. Now, the shopping index only looks at traffic referred from social, but it's an inspiration channel for the high end of the market. And I think it kind of speaks to the health of the high end of the market. If you can transact in social at the point of inspiration, there's a ton of strength at that end of the market, which is very, very interesting.
But what I'm also finding is that yes to, electronics, yes to sort of lower price point items tend to do really well. And yes to some higher end items and or higher end brands, but also there is still some hesitation for brands that are trying to cater towards the the already established buyer as opposed to the aspirational buyer. Is there, is that reflected in the data, or should some of these brands reconsider using TikTok Shop? And if so, what would be your...
Yeah, I think it's an emerging channel that's gaining a lot of ground very quickly. Now it's still small in the overall, market in terms of order share, but we anticipate it will be one of the fastest growing online commerce channels outside of the traditional e-commerce website this holiday season. In fact, that's one of our holiday predictions, that social commerce will grow 9 times faster than traditional e-commerce. We've seen, while it does tend to skew young, and it also skews to higher income, we've seen everyone across the board, not everyone, but, a high percentage of all generations and all income levels say that they've made a purchase on a social commerce platform directly embedded within the platform. So I think what it speaks to more is that the consumer, regardless of the channel, is becoming more and more comfortable transacting off property in these new formats. And so while today it's mostly social commerce, I think I think it's a proof point for the benefit or the use case and the relevance of embedding commerce directly within the AI chat. Because eventually, as this grows, and as more and more consumers see the convenience and the benefits of it, we'll start to see it happening in greater numbers and greater share. And so as a brand, I think social commerce is a really great way to test that out, to test out your consumer, to see if they are willing to transact off property in a channel like social commerce. And I think it's a proof point for continued investment down the line into AI commerce, conversational commerce, investing more in those embedded commerce solutions directly in chat.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. So takeaway before we jump into the holiday predictions, which of course, spoiler alert, we shared one for the retail shopping index. So digital traffic is up pretty significantly. Digital commerce growth is up. Would you say that sort of is your hot take on the shopping index? Would you say that there's pent up demand, but consumers are cautiously optimistic as it relates to actual dollars that they are spending? Or would you put a sort of a different overlay on that?
Almost, very close. I would say consumers are spending more than we've seen them spend in the last several years, but I wouldn't say they're optimistic.
Okay.
Pessimism in the economy is at an all-time high, which is so interesting. It's like a paradox, right? I think consumers are just saying, you know what, I can't wait anymore. The fridge I put off, updating, or the new wardrobe I wanted, that I put off. I'm just gonna go ahead and make those purchases. We're seeing a lot of really great deals right now in the market, and so I think despite the economic woes and the economic challenges, consumers are just going full steam ahead.
Well, to that point, I think you make a fantastic point, and then also then the corresponding opportunity for brands is to really think about taking advantage of when the consumer does open their digital wallet to make those purchases. And I'll give you my own personal example, but I think it correlates. So when we needed to purchase a new fridge for the house, we got it from Samsung. Now Samsung also had this corresponding promotion that once you spend a certain amount, then you also get a certain amount of savings on additional items that were in your order. And the more items that were added to your basket, the greater the discount was, such that, I mean, I had to keep spending because I kept saving. And it was wild just to see the amount of savings stack up, where I ended up saving a significant amount in addition to the already pre-existing sort of promotion on the first item. So instead of spend $1,000, I might have ended up spending, $1,700, but I got way more value on things that I knew that we would need in a year or potentially in a year, just depending on how, of course, buying a new house, you have no clue, right? Like you don't know when your dishwasher is going to go out or whatever. So I ended up buying all of the things and just as a result of that sort of spend more, save more promotion. But also the same was true. And I was actually talking with another customer this past week, and it's funny how these things correlate, but the actual, you're suggesting that the data proves it out. So when we were purchasing new bed frames and new mattresses and so on and so forth for the new house, and I was doing my research and trying to be a bit objective while also, being supportive of our Agentforce Commerce customers. But what stuck out to me was that, when I did land on a specific bed frame, we'll just say, turns out that who I purchased from, there's a holdco works with Agentforce Commerce, and they have multiple brands, and there actually is a whole sort of marketing, lifecycle marketing plan associated to making sure that you not only see what you need for the bed frame, and there is a corresponding upsell for the adjacencies for the items that you could also purchase that you might need in addition to that bed frame, whether it's a mattress or otherwise. But then in addition to that, certain brands made better kids mattresses, as an example. Yeah. And so while I was purchasing from one of their brands for our primary bedroom, but our daughter's room and our twin boys' room, I was purchasing from one of their other brands. And it was actually done on purpose, just the way that they position themselves in the market. But they are also, the intention is to capture, hey, once you have decided that you are going to purchase a mattress or purchase a bed frame, chances are that you are also going to be purchasing other things for that room or other things related to the house. And whether it happens on one brand or another brand, the expectation is that your digital wallet is open, right? And so that's also another way to think about the consumer, as you mentioned, pessimistic, but also they're still making decisions based on the things that they need. And so once they are deciding to make a purchase, take advantage of that and make sure that you are showing up not only in like spend more, save more, or whatever like the loyalty method looks like for your brand, but also make sure that you increase your brand's exposure on the discovery channels or your sister brand's product exposure, their brand exposure on those discovery channels as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you said that, it reminded me of one of our other predictions for this holiday, which one of the recommendations that we have is, intelligent bundling and upselling. We know that might as well just get into it. One of our predictions, the K-shaped economy. And we're seeing the higher end of the market is performing really, really well. They tell us, but we also see it. They're spending more. They're feeling optimistic. They're saying that their financial outcomes are improving, whereas everybody else is the exact opposite. And so for the retailer, a lot of the challenges they have this year are really going to be tied to how they market to those two distinct customers and also how they balance or how they navigate their balance sheet. We know that costs are rising, not just for consumers, but also for brands and retailers. Returns are increasing. We're seeing every single quarter their average return rate go up. We also know that shipping costs are really, really high. Geopolitical tensions around the world are increasing gas and oil prices. And so that is having an impact on shipping costs. What we did find in our data that was really interesting was we see very significant differences between the K in the economy, the K-shaped economy, but where they converge, where they're the same is what they want out of the shopping experience. And the number one reported experience or benefit that they want and what will determine who they buy from is free shipping across low, middle, and high income consumers. So free shipping is the one unifier that they have. And so that puts even more pressure, right, on brands because they have all these increasing costs and a more challenging consumer to market to. And so our fifth prediction is about the risk of free shipping. We anticipate an additional $3 billion that brands will spend to offer free shipping this holiday season. And so what does that look like? And how are brands going to navigate that? On the high end of the economy, it's going to be about that intelligent bundling, high level of personalization, that high touch type of service and loyalty experience. And then on the lower end of the K, it's going to be about, those free shipping thresholds and sort of what you talked about with, buy more, save more types of promotions. And really trying to beef up that basket so that those free shipping perks don't erode margins even further.
I totally agree. And I'll give you a real example again, using our house as the example, but we purchased nightstands and one of them came damaged. The other one, fantastic. The other one came damaged. Unfortunate. It's a reality. And, what's interesting is that the brand wanted me to ship it back, even after, of course, you send all the pictures and you're like, here very clearly it's damaged. And they're like, yes, we'll refund it if you ship it back. I'm like, why do you want me to ship it back? Let's just figure this out. I fully plan on purchasing a replacement from you. So let's figure it out so that, it doesn't cost me time, it doesn't cost you additional margin erosion.
Yeah.
Not only do you have to refund me, but then, you're also going to eat the cost of me returning the item. Let's just figure out what credit you can give me so that I can put that towards a new nightstand. Right. So I think consumers also probably can find a way to negotiate with the brands that they interact with to ensure that there can be mutual wins across the board. Yes, consumers are demanding. We get it. They've got a lot more options. And once they have decided on a brand and a particular item from that brand, they feel there's a lot of commitment associated to that decision. And so they don't want to have to go backwards from that decision point because they've done all of this extra discovery.
Exactly.
Right. So, which I think is actually one of your predictions. So maybe we actually start from the top and, let's start with prediction 1 and then we'll get to prediction 5 as well. So prediction number 1, hit us with the highlights, Kayla, and then we'll jump in from there.
We're going to bring it back a little bit to the beginning of this conversation when we talked about that increase, that 18% increase in traffic. Where is that coming from? Can't all be, consumers just visiting more e-commerce sites, almost nearly 20% more than they were this quarter. There has to be another factor in there. Yes, we know consideration stages are longer. And so, but we do have this other factor, right? Which is AI discovery, agentic search. And what we're seeing in our consumer sentiment research is that product discovery overall is becoming more diverse. So when we asked shoppers, where do you go during your shopping journey while you're researching, discovering, and considering a new product? You need to make a purchase. You need to buy a new pair of shoes. Where are you going to do your research? And what we found, we asked this last year and we asked it last spring, we asked it last fall, and we asked it again this spring. And what we found was that between last spring and this spring, we saw a decrease in the rate of consumers going to more traditional properties. So marketplaces, traditional organic search, and what we would call traditional brand-owned properties like the website and the store. And where we saw growth was newer channels. So delivery apps like Uber and Instacart and DoorDash. We saw growth in social media. Obviously, we see that in our data, our behavioral data. And we also saw an increase in the rate of consumers going to AI search. So general AI assistants, social media AI assistants, and even brand-owned agents. So we dug down even further, and what we saw is that the rate of shoppers reporting using these channels is growing at a rate of 67% year over year. So crazy, right? So
we knew it was going to be high, but still 67%.
I know. Half of shoppers now, half of all consumers out in the market say that they've used AI, an AI assistant, an LLM at some point in their buying journey in the past year. So in the past year, half of consumers have opted in. Yeah, it's wild. But what was even more interesting was the rate of consumers reporting AI as the first stop in the journey. So last year, only 5% of shoppers said that they were going to a ChatGPT or a Gemini or name your tool first. This May, it rose to 15. So we've kind of moved from the territory of it being a novelty into being a real serious tool that consumers have and are opting into and have at their disposal. And it's becoming, for many, their first place that they turn to.
That's incredible. Was there one in particular that stood out, Jeffrey?
So we didn't ask that. We asked them to delineate between general purpose LLMs, social media, and
fair enough.
And brand agents. So, and we didn't ask about brand agents last year or branded agents because there really weren't any out in the market. So this year was the first year we started to see that.
No, that's fair. And I like the breakdown. So maybe that's a follow-up question.
But I will tell you, so we do have some data. So I will say that the number one use case, or the number one type of agent that consumers are using today in the discovery journey, are general purpose LLMs. So 7% reported turning to general purpose LLMs first, 5 social media agents, and 3 branded agents. Add that all up, it's 15%. When we look at the entire, how many, whatever part of the journey you're in, so it doesn't matter if it's the first stop or maybe it's the third, 21% are using general purpose LLMs, 17% social media agents, and 12% branded agents.
So that's not in it. That's both first interaction as well as any corresponding interactions.
Exactly. When we look at the behavioral data, the number one, we actually look at the source of traffic, the number one source right now is ChatGPT. So that really seems to be the consumer LLM of choice right now. And, underneath that, it's changing very rapidly. So there's a lot of, again, it's so new. Maybe not so new, but it's still really early days. So it's changed. It's very fluid at the moment.
It's still crazy because just the amount of growth from last year to this year, both in first stop as well as any stop in the customer's discovery journey, using AI within that, within that experience. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
It really is. It really is. Consumers are really getting a lot of value out of it. Now, what they're using it for, it's price comparisons. It's being able to ask for highly personalized product recommendations in a conversational way. It's having all the data, right, saved. You don't have to like refresh the conversation and give it all the information. It has that context of you and your lifestyle from your past conversations. And so there's a convenience factor there. So there's just a ton of proof points in the value that these agents are finding for consumers. And what we see too is that they might use it for one aspect of their daily life and they're realizing, oh, I can use it to shop, right? Like, for example, my neighbor used, it might have been ChatGPT or Gemini, I don't really remember, but he went to Germany with his wife and they needed a prescription from the doctor while they were there. They couldn't read the label because it was in German. So they just took a picture of it, or their son-in-law told them how to use ChatGPT, took a picture of it, put it through the AI, and it translated the prescription for them. And that moment, like now translated into a ton of new use cases that they're using across their entire, daily lives. And so all it takes is that one proof point to really open up sort of the world of opportunity for consumers. So, and shopping is just one of them. And shopping is probably one of the more fun, in my opinion, use cases for this technology because it can be so personalized and so specific. But going back to that 18%, why is traffic increasing so much? We can't identify where all of this traffic is coming from. And so one of our theses is that much of this traffic is coming from agents coming to websites, either indexing the website, pulling information back into conversations. A lot of the discovery is staying in the conversation and the consumer is moving to the branded site once they've already made up their mind. And we see that in the performance data. Traffic coming from referred LLMs converts so much better than other forms of traffic, especially direct traffic and social media traffic. And so there's going back to the concept of discovery and showing up across so many different places, it's now more important than ever. And so our first prediction is that 20% of holiday e-commerce traffic will be from agents. So that will be a combination of direct referred traffic. It'll be crawlers. It will be agents pulling data back into conversations. And so we're seeing this grow very rapidly at the moment. And we anticipate it'll be about 20% once we get to the holidays.
So here, my hot take for this week is that I predict that each large language model will have their own modular, composable shopping agent that brands actually can take advantage of within their own owned and operated experiences. Now, that's competition for our own shopping agent for Salesforce, for Agentforce Commerce. But having said that, it also increases adoption of shopper agents. So net, I think it'll be good for everyone.
Totally.
My hot take is that we will at some point see a ChatGPT, Claude, etc., Perplexity branded shopping agent within the owned and operated experience, similar to how we have branded payment methods.
Interesting. I like it. I don't, to your comment about earlier, I don't think it's a competition with our own brands, our own agents. I think it helps, right? It's like saying Google search.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like saying Google search would be a competition to your own site search. I don't think it's a competition. I think it proves the value of agents and it makes it even more important, right? That brands
100%.
And grow their own storefront and modernize their own storefront to keep up with those experience demands that consumers have.
Totally
I'm curious, Caleb, on your opinion on, product feeds. So we know that OpenAI and Google, they're moving more into the feed model where instead of crawling, they'll pull directly from the product feed, which is going to help a lot because from, a website perspective, if you have a lot of agent crawlers on your site, it's going to be expensive. It's going to slow it down. But we do know that there's other agents out there, AI, social media agents, other types of crawlers that are pulling data. There's a whole host of technology that's coming to market. It feels like every day. And so do you have any recommendations for brands, like how you navigate this, what you should prioritizing the feed over the crawl, Should you do both? Or where do you start?
So, I mean, I think that brands have to start where they can control the outcome, and that will change based on just the evolution of time. And I say that to say, like, when large language models really started to gain popularity, at least within Agentforce Commerce, the actual catalog syndication component, which we knew would be the end outcome because we already have it in so many different other channels, but it wasn't necessarily being prioritized by those large language models at the time. So then the answer immediately had to be, okay, how do we optimize our content so that it can be more contextually consumable for how shoppers are using large language models for their product discovery? So that had to be the thing that brands could control within that period of time. And now that, and of course, everything is evolving very, very quickly, maturity even of teams internally at ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity and otherwise, there certainly are much more efficient ways of sharing that data. Of course, catalog feeds is the preferred route because you can control things like inventory availability, like pricing, certainly optionality within particular styles or corresponding SKUs, how you want to prioritize your feed as well in terms of consumability, and then the corresponding context that you do want to give answer engines when when consumers are going through that product discovery process. You want to be able for answer engines to give what you believe as a brand is the most relevant context for how your products show up. So we're getting to a much more programmatic way of sharing that information with answer engines, which is fantastic. I think the Universal Commerce Protocol, certainly Salesforce being one of the founding members of the Google's sort of agentic growth council, all of that, certainly relevant. And I think social channels also becoming shopping agents and leveraging UCP as part of that, I think will only continue to accelerate the adoption of and corresponding growth of each of these channels for product discovery and for using AI. And like you mentioned, sort of deeply contextual, lots of details that customers want to ask the questions to, but maybe, aren't necessarily willing to ask a human those questions, right? But they still want to be able to put in their own context for how they're asking those questions. And so I think, the answer is you have to go with the pathway that you can control the outcome for until that pathway changes, or until that aperture gets a little bit broader that includes multiple different pathways or routes to market, just to use a more commonly accepted phrase, for how brands interact or leverage their data to interact with consumers through large language models.
Yeah, great answer. Well,
Awesome.
speaking of large language models.
Yes, prediction number 2.
Prediction 2, more small language models. We talked a bit about the, gravitation of consumers to general purpose LLMs, but branded agents are growing in popularity. It was virtually zero this time last year. Now we see, consumers are reporting that they are using these tools, and how they're using these branded agents is somewhat more nuanced than how they're using general purpose LLMs. So we see some use cases starting to emerge for why a consumer would choose one piece of technology over another. And so why they prefer to go to a general purpose LLM would be for generating gift list ideas, finding promo codes, doing product comparisons and price comparisons. When they prefer to go to the branded agent, it's all about order management, customer service, processing returns, managing, their loyalty ecosystem. And where we see sort of a convergence of the two, where there's not much preference over either, is on things like fit guidance and checking inventory, which I think goes to your point earlier about the feed. Being able to surface those inventory levels into general purpose LLMs is going to be really important because consumers expect to be able to find that information there. Now, when they do get on site and start using your agentic search tools, we know that the number one use case are semantic type searches. So asking specific questions about a product, finding solutions. Those are the top 2 ways that consumers are now interacting with on-site search. And so,
which is crazy to actually say that.
I know,
that
right?
statement, would that statement have been true a year ago? I
Probably
mean, just
not.
to a certain degree, the technology was there, but from a consumer behavior standpoint,
Yeah.
I think probably not.
Completely agree. It's a really rapid evolution of the consumer, but we've seen this right play out so many different times. We have, Google search comes to market and now it's changed the way the entire consumer base interacts with websites. Mobile, social, right? The tap and scroll model has changed the
Yeah.
way that consumers interact with the internet. And so this is just another one of those ways. And so we're now starting to see that behavior translate on site on a brand's own properties. So proving the point that
It's awesome.
it's awesome and it's more important than ever now to enable that technology for your consumer. Just having
So
those semantic search capabilities are so important.
So then how does agentic search contextually, semantically translate into better shopper agent experiences? Because the correlation in terms of just how the technology is delivered is really, really high between search and then shopper. So then how does, at least based on the data, what's the correlation between those two things? If you've got agentic search powering, maybe the longer tailed, discovery queries that customers are having. But then once they get down to a product details page, let's just say, how are brands able to leverage that context of the session for that consumer? And then how are consumers sort of expecting brands to be able to continue that conversation once they do get to the product details page? What does the AI assisted experience look like there? Do we have any sort of, predictions with regard to the correlation of shopping agent and agentic search?
Yeah, well, I think what we're starting to see kind of twofold, right? It's for the consumer that is taking a more traditional path through the website. It's having those embedded agentic experiences on those traditional pages. So having like an ask agent module in the product detail page, where it can summarize reviews, you can ask questions directly about that product. But I think more and more what we're starting to see is within the agentic interface, what I'm starting to see more out in the market when we look at brands, because we're combing through websites every week, just kind of looking at what brands are doing and what seems to be sort of prevailing UI right now. Again, things are changing so quickly. Is you have your traditional search bar, and then you have your ask agent, module right next to that search. So you're getting, you're for the consumer that's already going to engage with search, you're trying to lead them to engage with the agent. And then within the agentic interface, if you click on a product, you don't actually leave the agentic conversational interface. The product detail page sort of comes to you. And so we're seeing more and more, instead of you moving around the website comes into the conversation, and you can view the entire product detail page. You can go to the entire product detail page if you want, but you have the convenience of being able to view the product details, add the product to cart, view all the images right in that conversation. And there's some really cool use cases out there, but that's starting to be sort of the prevailing UI out there in the market right now. Are you seeing anything different, Caleb?
I'm seeing two things. I'm seeing, like you mentioned, sort of traditional search and agentic search, run in parallel. What I'm also seeing is, and I think you make a really interesting point, sort of like the product details page coming to the consumer as opposed to the consumer going to the product details page. That's interesting. What I'm also seeing is shopper agents embedded into different portions of the customer journey. So if they are using, for example, semantic search to get through the top of the funnel, but they then and still want to leverage the context of the top of the funnel product discovery, but then also want to be able to ask more detailed questions once they are getting to a place of like comparing this product versus that product, or getting to like, hey, this is when I say this is what I really mean, and does this product actually accomplish my particular use case? Once they are looking at one product or two products in particular, I think the embedding a shopper agent in that sort of time and space within the customer journey also is a really interesting way for brands to take advantage of AI as consumers are sort of narrowing down their choices and moving from a place of intention, getting to a place of confirmation, and then sort of taking the next steps to conversion.
But before we let everyone get off, I will say the prediction number for prediction number 2 is that 1 in 3 brands will have a branded shopper agent on their website by Cyber Week 2026. So the pressure's on to build before the Cyber Week event. And so it's exciting. I'm excited to see what our customers put out into market between now and November.
That sounds like a Kayla hot take. 1 in 3 brands should have a branded shopper agent. I like the hot take.
Competition
Kayla,
is fierce.
always good to see you.
Thanks, Kayla.